Hello, welcome to the Brain Scrub, an improvised approach for mental health. My name is Glenn Sollers. I'm your host, and thanks for tuning in. First of all, I just need to check in with a feeling of anger. Like I'm really angry. The last few days, there's been this guy on this backhoe in my neighbor's yard moving rocks around, piling them up with a cheap bulldozer that clangs constantly. And I had to actually shift my microphone today because it's so noisy. And he's been going all day. It's almost 8 p.m. at night. He's still going. And I look at the guy, and he's the kind of guy that I'm not going to tell to stop. He just has that kind of look where it's like, okay, I'm not going any further. It doesn't look safe for me. He might run me over with the backhoe. But yeah, I'm just checking in with that. And I think it's really appropriate with my topic today, which I've been struggling with as this week's been a difficult one for me, which is fine. We all have rain sometimes that comes through the skies, and we can't always have sunshine. And I recorded this podcast 2 other times, and it didn't work. And I thought, okay, tonight is going to be the night that I just share exactly what's going on. And I hope through me sharing, you can relate to me based on maybe some story that you are caring about somebody. And this is about my son, who I haven't seen for 6 years. And it is super hard. I can't even explain how hard it is to not see a child, especially if you don't know the reason why and they just are silent and there's no response in return other than, I will see you when I'm ready. And they say that parental alienation, which I suspect this is one of the most difficult things to go through. In fact, some would say it's easier to lose a child due to death because there's closure there. However, I don't know if that's true or not. I've never lost a child to death, and I can't imagine what it's like. And it almost feels sometimes to me like the relationship is dead, and I may never see him again. I hope I do. But that's the reality. Who knows what's going to happen? So the topic today is around sadness, anger, fear, in respect to when you are clinging on to something in your life, like there's something so important to you, and you're hanging on to it for dear life. But in the process of you hanging on to it and you trying to fix it and you trying to make things right, you are suffering. I think a lot of us can relate to this, that there might be something in our life that is causing a great deal of suffering for us. And there's so many different things that this could be based on. And the challenge with suffering is there's really no escape. You just keep on suffering, and I keep on suffering the fact that I don't see my child. But a lot of the suffering is self-induced. It's our thinking and our actions that we take at times can cause suffering to happen. And I'm going to give you a good example of this. And this is like a real example. And that is that I found out about 7 months ago that my son created a podcast. And I'm like, really? Okay, that's great, because I have no other way of looking into his life. So I started listening to this podcast. And it was so lovely to hear his voice, to hear what he's going through in his life, to hear his stories. But there was a clear avoidance of mentioning me in any respect. So it was interesting listening to him and understanding, well, what's he going through? Where is he going to school? Where is he working? What's happening? How has he progressed in life? Because I don't have any window into that whatsoever. But at the same time, I suffer listening to it because it hurts to hear what's going on in his life and how great his life is. Like, I'm happy his life is great, but I'm not part of it. So I hit a breaking point because every 2 weeks when his podcast comes out, I'm probably the first one to click on play and listen to the podcast. But I'm also probably the first one who's saying, oh my gosh, I just wish you were in my life. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. The last podcast he must have recorded it on Father's Day because his co-host, Derek, said, Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there, except you deadbeat dads, and blah, blah, blah. And they used a bit of swearing there. And it just really struck me the wrong way. I don't know if his co-host is fatherless as well. However, it just really hurt. And it was just one example of things people say can really have an impact on us. And I continue to listen to the podcast reluctantly. The following morning, I was in tears. I was so upset. And I realized I have such an attachment to having my son in my life. And I have such an attachment to wanting to hear from him, to his podcast, to Google searching him. Now, many of you might say, well, of course, he's your son. You would have that attachment. The challenge is, though, it's been causing me a lot of suffering. And other parents that go through this, what I've heard is you just have to be patient. You can't really do anything when a child is potentially brainwashed by another parent. And especially to reject you, which is the case. But here I am, I'm trying to connect with a person who doesn't want me in their life right now. Now, if you look up the definition of father, and I think this is part of the problem, is we assign meaning to different things, like a father and son relationship should be like this. And we have all these different role models, like some of you are probably too young to know this, like Leave It to Beaver, or there's all these 70s shows where they show the ideal family, the father and son relationship, like the Andy Griffith show. Oh my gosh, Different Strokes. The list goes on and on and on about family and the importance of having parents in your life. And wow, where was I going with this? Yeah, you might be saying, well, Glenn, that's quite normal that you'd be upset and that you would want to pursue him and have him in your life. And he has rejected me for the time being. Okay, now I got my train of thought. And I keep on trying with nothing in return. Now, part of me says this is something I have to do. They say always try to keep in touch with your child. Always let them know that you're there, that your doors are open, that you want to have a relationship and find out about them. But wow, does it ever take its toll when nothing comes back? Like you're talking to a wall, it's silence. And that's what I kind of realized the following morning was, I am suffering. I cried and cried. I didn't know what to do. I said, I have to let go of listening to this. And it's not healthy for me. It's probably going to kill me early by just even going through this stress because it causes me anxiety, depressive behaviors in some respects. It just makes me feel lonely, upset, disgusted in myself, disgusted in this situation. So I called a friend and I said, I need to talk to you. And he said, okay. Folks, whatever you're going through community is everything. Friends are everything. Friends are there to help. And so I went to see him and his wife, and they gave me some good advice around the importance of not letting go of my relationship with my son, because I could do that. I could write a letter to him and say, you know what, get out of my life. I don't want you in my life anymore, which is not the case at all. So that would not be me. And there's some people out there that say that's the thing to do, is to have a funeral for your child. Like, they're not dead, but just have a funeral as a symbolic gesture to rid them of your thoughts. But the thing is, I'm not going to ever get rid of the thoughts of my son. I love him and I want him in my life. So we decided on maybe writing him a letter saying, you know what, I'm not going to try anymore because of what I'm going through, and expressing my feelings and expressing my emotions of what's happening, and sharing with him that I really love you. I want you back in my life. And it was so helpful. And we also talked about the importance of, if you get rid of something, if you decide to not pursue something or not focus your efforts on something, you need to fill that void with something. And I thought that was brilliant advice, because if I'm going to let go of listening to the podcast, I have to fill it with something else. And that's what I really got from that conversation, was just the importance of refocusing my efforts on people that love me, people that care about me. And not saying my son doesn't love or care about me, but it's not being expressed right now. So in my present day life, focus my energies to that where I'm going to get energy back, where my efforts are going to pay off, versus throwing sand into a bottomless pit. You're never going to fill it up. And this hole in my heart, I can fill it up with different things. I went home, I wrote the letter, I then sent it to my friend, and he said, wow, it's an amazing letter, Glenn. I couldn't have written it better myself, and he was going to deliver it for me. Well, that night, I talked to another dear friend of mine, and she is the kind of friend that will tell me exactly what's going on. She has this ability to really get into my mind and question my thoughts and my thinking. And she said, well, Glenn, I could read this letter a bit more, but right now, I just want to ask you, what do you want out of this? So I said, well, I want him to contact me. I want to let him know that I'm not feeling that good, that I'm going to give him the space that he probably needs right now. And she said, okay, well, that's all about you. And it made me realize that in this whole situation, I've been focused on the meaning of what a father is. And wow, that's what I was going to talk about earlier. And then I lost my train of thought. Hello, we're back on the train here. And the definition of father is quite interesting, because essentially it is one that produces another being. That's what they do. That's like a father contributes that. I'm making or producing a child, an offspring. Animals do the same thing. And yeah, there's an extended definition of the father as one of the caregivers, as you're fathering a child. But really, I just created a child to bring into this world. And I was lucky enough to have the first 13 years with him. And I had a blast with him, as he did with me, and to really cherish that. But after the age of 13, kids are kind of on their own little journey. They're trying to figure life out. And especially at the age of 18, 19, and 20, I know when I was a kid, the last thing I wanted to do was hang out with my parents. So I'm likely going to have to wait till 25 to maybe hear from him. What I got to was I didn't send the letter. And today I asked a good friend of mine, I said, you're going to hold me accountable. And whenever I feel like I need to listen to my son's podcast or I need to connect with him, I'm going to call you and you're going to call me out on it. And he said, okay, Glenn, I'll do that. Because also when I shared with them that I want to send this letter saying that I'm going to step back, I'm not going to try to contact you for the next 5 years, they kind of looked at me when I shared that with them and they said, Glenn. I'm just laughing because it's so funny. They're so brilliant in terms of what they say. They said, "We know you, Glenn. Do you think you're really going to do that?" And I've made commitments before and I don't follow through. But this one is really important to me because I am feeling the impacts of my suffering. And if you think about your situation, what is the impact on you? You might be chasing something. You might be trying to fix something. You might be trying to be the person, the superhero that flies in and saves the day and says, "Hey, look at me. I am Mr. Morals. I have a lot of ethics. I have common sense. This is not the right way to do things." And yeah, when I look at, again, all these father figures out there, my situation's not that good. And it doesn't compare at all to what we learn a father to be. Like, I never thought I'd be in this situation at all. I thought I'd be the best dad in the world. Everything was going to be great. Bang, it happened to me. I was also reminded by my friends, which is, again, the reason I get support is they said, "You know what, Glenn, you're a great dad." And everybody who knows me and knows my son knows that I'm a great dad. You did all you could, and to not take the blame for it. This is not your fault. Now, there are things I could have done differently for sure, but I'm in a situation where I can't win. And sadly, there's a lot of people that are losing out of this, including my family members. But the point is, when we are dealing with situations like this, where there's a blender of emotions that are stirring around, first of all, ask for help. You don't have to do things alone. People care about me. I care about me. I am worth it. The person's journey or the situation that you're dealing with, that's their situation. Yeah, it might impact you, but it's not your situation. In this situation, my son is at an age where he is responsible enough to make a decision. This is up to him. I've done what I can. But if I keep on pushing, figuring things out, trying to be there, trying to find ways to get him to latch on to the hook that I've been putting and casting out in the water there, just casting out this hook constantly with nothing biting back. And by the way, that's kind of like my fishing here where I live. I used to catch so many fish where I used to live. Here, I'm out on my kayak, not catching anything other than sharks, like little sharks. They're also known as dogfish, which are super annoying. They get on the hook and then they wrap around and then they're slippery and their tail has a spike on it and they pee through their skin. And then I put them in the net and then they get in the net, they twirl around, they get tangled in the net, and then I have to try to get the hook out of it. It's not fun. And it kind of represents the suffering that I'm going through in this case, but I'm always trying to untangle the hook. And I'm always trying to take the hook out of the fish. And I'm always trying to figure out, well, what can I do? And I try and I try and I try. And I keep on not catching anything. And if I want to catch my son because he is worth keeping, I need to be patient. I need to sit there, just throw at that hook, which I've done several times. He needs to bite. Because if I try to get him to bite, he will just go further and further away from the hook that I've thrown in to the water. Remember that what we think about a situation is what we think about a situation. It is sometimes what we consider the reality or the right thing to do. But that's only for us. It might be different for the other individual. Our right isn't the right. Our meaning of how we see the world and how things ought to be is based on history, is based on things that have been written. one workshop that I went to taught me that life is really empty and meaningless. We attach meaning to things. So the meaning we add to things, the thoughts we add to things, is what causes suffering in a lot of cases. My son said to me, I will let you know when I'm ready. That's it. I've created a whole story about this, and my actions have been correlate to my story. What can you do to stop the suffering? Again, my commitment is no Googling, no going to his podcast. I'm going no contact for the next few years at least, so that he has the space, so that I don't suffer, even though it is very sad for me, so that I can focus my time, my energy, my love, my passion on those things that matter, like my wife, my friends, my family, my work, the sports I do, and continue to live a fantastic life, which I'm living. And to plug this hole with all that versus letting the hole grow and bleed, which it's doing. So I'm going to patch it up with the importance of catching myself. When I catch myself going to this space where I'm suffering, to stop and say, nope, I'm committed to doing this. Oh, I'm suffering. Nope, stop. I'm committed to this. It's going to be a back and forth movement, kind of like a tennis match, but I'll get through the game, and I know what I'm committed to. Folks, thanks for listening.